Is there a more confounding, confusing, confuddling team in the NFL than the Green Bay Packers? I'm not sure there is. One week, they look like they're the best team on the planet, and then they go and find ways to lose games in the most inexplicable ways to the most unexplainable teams. I mean, if you look at their record, okay, they have 2 losses. Their 2 losses are to the Carolina Panthers at home and the Cleveland Browns, okay? So let's take a look at what happened Sunday at Lambeau Field at Carolina. Just to put in perspective how unlikely this win was for Carolina. Carolina came into this game 3-20. 3-20 when facing a team over 500. 500, a winning record. The Carolina Panthers had lost 20 of their last 23 games. That was the worst stretch over that time frame in the entire NFL. And yet they go to Lambeau after what we saw in that game against the Steelers the week before in the primetime game and find a way to beat Green Bay? How is that possible? How does that make any sense? The Panthers, again, were absolutely atrocious. You got to give Dave Canales, the head coach of Carolina, a lot of credit in the world, but I just don't understand what is going on in Green Bay. You know, Jordan Love had 20 straight completions against the Pittsburgh Steelers. 20 straight. I heard people say if he plays like that, they'll be playing in Santa Clara in the Super Bowl at Levi Stadium. Maybe. But how do you lose to Carolina? And how do you lose to the Cleveland Browns? Oh, and by the way, how did you tie the Dallas Cowboys? Like, the inconsistencies from the Green Bay Packers from start to finish this year are absolutely incredible. The Panthers played the game the best way they could. The Panthers found a way to try and shorten the game, right? They wanted to make an average. They wanted to make sure they controlled the clock as much as they could, and they did a great job of it. They took an average of almost 43 seconds between the start of one play and the start of the next. And for people to understand, put that in perspective, that's the 4th slowest start of one play of any team in Week 9. So in other words, when they had the ball, they wanted to make sure they held the ball as long as they possibly could before giving anything up to the Green Bay Packers. The Packers managed long drives, but the team was just limited to 7 drives in that game. That's the fewest for any team since Week 1, when the Colts just absolutely dominated Miami in that game and didn't punt. So that's what was done well by Dave Canales. But if you're the Green Bay Packers, this is unacceptable. You just can't do this. You can't look at the Green Bay Packers and say, well, one week they did this, and the next week, how do they do that? It's a remarkable thing, and I don't think it gives anybody a real sense of, does anybody know what's going on right now? And that actually is a bigger picture here, because we already talked about the Chiefs, right? You look at all these teams that everybody thought might be there when it's all said and done, whether it was the Green Bay Packers, whether it was the Kansas City Chiefs, whether it was the Detroit Lions, who also lost. I mean, so many big teams that we thought had a real opportunity to play really, really well and deep into the postseason, all lost Week 9, except for the Buffalo Bills, right, who did a remarkable job, and we've talked about that. So, you know, the Chiefs, the Colts, the Packers, and the Lions, all these teams that have great expectations suddenly found ways to lose on Sunday. You know, the Lions were at home, and they found a way to lose to Minnesota with J.J. McCarthy coming back after that ankle situation that he suffered in Week 2, and they find a way to lose at home. That doesn't make any sense. Then the Colts, Daniel Jones had 4 turnovers on the season heading into the game in Pittsburgh, and he has 5 in that game, 2 fumbles and 3 interceptions. He more than doubled his turnover total. And you know what people are going to say? Well, that's the Daniel Jones we know. That's the Daniel Jones that got run out of New York. Had a bad game. The defense for the Pittsburgh Steelers finally decided to show up. So what does Week 9 in total tell us? That we don't know anything, okay? We do these wild proclamations. Well, this is now the betting favorite to be the MVP. This team is now the favorite to represent their conference in the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything because as we are finding out, things flip pretty damn quickly in the NFL. So all these people that feel really good about this one team this week and this other team the next week, just let it play out. And I know that drives people crazy. Well, then I have people say, well, what's the fun in that? Well, how about being right? How about just being accurate? How about just taking things as they are? Look, my sort of lifeblood of how I try and approach things was crystallized to me in the 2014 season when on a Monday night game, the Kansas City Chiefs welcomed in Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and the Patriots and got absolutely hammered by Kansas City 38-14. And I remember this day as clearly as it was yesterday. That was a Monday night game. The Tuesday after that, whether it was on SportsCenter or Fox Sports or whatever, everyone's talking about, well, this is the end of the Patriots. I've never seen a Bill Belichick team look like this. I heard people say that I trusted and I believed wholeheartedly in their knowledge. Tom Brady looks washed. Tom Brady looked like Joe Namath with the Rams in the 70s. And I'm going, it's the fourth game of the season. What are we doing? And I remember distinctly on NFL Live, I said, let's just pump the brakes here for a minute. This was a game in late September or early October, and the Patriots look terrible. They're the Patriots. They still have Bill Belichick. They still have Tom Brady. Let's just slow our roll here and see how these things play out. And you know what happened that year? Do you know? Because I'll tell you. The Patriots went to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl over the Seattle Seahawks, 28-24. And that was the year they were supposed to be washed. The dynasty was over. They went on to win a couple of more Super Bowls, and Brady went on to win his last one with the Bucs. So whenever things happen in a moment, do not become a prisoner of the moment. Take the long view. I have no idea whether or not Detroit is going to get things turned around. I know they have every possibility. I know I'm not going to kill their season based on this one game. I have no idea whether Green Bay is going to end up being as good as they look or as bad as they look sometimes. All I know is we got a long way to go to figure that out. I have no idea if Daniel Jones has turned back into Daniel Jones or Danny Dimes instead of Indiana Jones. All I know is he had a bad game, and they got beat up on the line of scrimmage, just like the Kansas City Chiefs. The Pittsburgh Steelers did a great job controlling the clock, did a great job in making sure Jonathan Taylor didn't wreck things for him, thus putting a lot more pressure on Daniel Jones. All I know is that they had a bad game. They had a bad game. So the long view is always going to be the best view here, okay? It's always going to be the best view. Do not judge an entire season by one game or one bad situation because things can change pretty quickly. Now, things have to get improved. Things have to be better for Green Bay. They have to find more consistency on offense and defense. Their kicking game was a mess yesterday. By the way, just saying it again, moving the PAT back remains the greatest rule in the history of the NFL. If you look at how many games it changed, including the one between New England and Atlanta, Parker Romo missed an extra point that would have tied the game. And that was the difference in the game, 24-23. Moving the PAT back and making it a real play, greatest decision the NFL has ever made in changing one of their rules. So everybody don't freak out. Everybody take the data in, look at what you saw, and try and apply it to the next thing, to the next game, to the next step. We don't crown a champion in November. We don't crown a champion in December or in January. We crown them in February. And it's great fodder to talk about all this kind of stuff. And you can have your opinions. And if that's how you want to be entertained, that's fine. Just understand, if you're making a declarative statement in November about who's going to be playing in February, most of the time you're going to be wrong because things change dramatically. Take the long view. Everything we thought we knew going into week 9 for a lot of these teams that we thought were going to be upper echelon teams turned out to be completely wrong. Do not judge anybody by their worst game Let the season play out. You know, people talk about New England, right? Well, they're on pace to have the easiest opponent's strength of schedule since the 1975 Minnesota Vikings. I think right now we're looking at a .354 winning percentage for the New England Patriots. And I get it. You can only play your schedule. I understand that. But I'm not going to crown them for beating a lot of bad teams. And I'm not going to say, well, you know, I shouldn't also respect you because you're only playing bad teams. You can only play your schedule. Like, that's the way it goes. You can only play your schedule. But take the long view here always. Take the fact that it's a 17-game season. I mean, you look at the injuries that we suffered in Week 9. The Washington Commanders, they're probably done now with Jaden Daniels out and McConkey breaking his collarbone. McCaffrey, breaking his collarbone. There's all kinds of issues there. So there are no declarative statements you can make because those things can happen on any given Sunday. Nobody knows anything. And anybody that says they know something is trying to sell you something. And just don't buy it. And that's straight facts.